God bless you as we move now into the fourth week of Lent, the second half of the Lenten season. And we continue our focus on the theme, being content with my weaknesses because of Jesus. We remember the words of Jesus to the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians 12, where Jesus said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." So today we think about the weakness of denial. 3 weeks ago, as we began the Lenten series, we focused on Judas's betrayal. And today we focus on Peter's denial. And you might be tempted to think, well, they're all sort of the same thing, aren't they? But I would make the case that the betrayal was a little bit more active. It took planning on Judas's part as he went and conspired with those leaders. With Peter, he sort of just backed into it and suddenly found himself in a situation where he couldn't say anything other than, "No, I do not know him." Peter had risked a lot after Jesus' arrest. Peter had been so bold in the garden to swing the sword and cut off the servant's ear. He had followed along behind Jesus, probably at a safe or relatively safe distance, got to the high priest's palace area, and hung out in the courtyard. And as the evening hours progressed, it was getting cold, and so someone lit a fire to offset that cold of the night. And that fire drew together weird combinations of people. There were people who had been there in the garden to arrest Jesus. There was the servant girl who knew about this account of Jesus being arrested. And then there was Peter himself, who had been there. He had been there so much that he was actually the one who had swung his sword. All of that time, Peter had been relying on his own strength, that strength that he boasted about when Jesus predicted that the disciples would run. And he said, "I never will," because Peter thought he was strong enough. And then all of a sudden, what Peter finds are those curse words coming out of his mouth as he denies Jesus. What happened to Peter? Too much trust in his own strength and not enough being carried along by the grace of Jesus. Our own denials of Jesus come along in life in much the same, similar sort of ways. We don't plan them. We sort of step backwards into them, just like Peter. We get into conversations with people, maybe not strangers around a fire, but more people we know well, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, our family. And some topic comes up that's a little bit ouchy in our culture, and somebody in essence says to us, "You aren't one of his followers too, are you?" And we're caught. We've been relying on our own strength to take our stand, to make our confession of faith, and we start stumbling and falling and seeing that the only way out is to deny and say, "Well, no, I don't believe that." Our denials of Jesus are so very similar to what Peter did on that fateful night. But Jesus once declared to his disciples, "You are my friends." Think about those words for a moment. The Lord of all creation has declared about his disciples, about us, "You are my friends." And in that bold confession, Jesus has declared that we will be his forever. In our weaknesses, we wobble, we tip, we fall, but Jesus never falls. Because as different as we are from him, that we're weak, Jesus is fully strong. Strong enough to stand up, strong enough to accomplish the work of our salvation, and strong enough to hold his grip on us. Where Jesus once said in John chapter 10, that no one shall ever pluck you from my hand. That's Jesus' declaration to us. That is something he will never deny. And so in this week, we understand that we may be weak and deny, but we relish his grace, knowing that Jesus will never deny us.